Hey, Brian from Garage Mahal. Today we are going to be doing an oil change on my T474, and we are going to be using a VEVOR low profile oil drain pan. And so let's put this together and see what's all entailed. Okay, so first things first, this is a booklet. So it's going to basically tell you all the parts that are involved, where to go, how to put everything together. So we'll kind of go step by step to follow along. And then this is the box opened up. So lots of foam, so we're going to put that kind of out of the way. Everything's kind of self-contained in here. And I like how it has this parts screen, so you can lay your parts on there. And also when you're draining oil, will help with kind of like the splashing of the oil coming back up at you. So that screen is removable. It's got a handle there. So I guess it probably sits on top of there, so it's easy to grab with the handle. So that's pretty cool. I'll put that down in front of the tractor. Some more foam. Parts box, and let's see what we get in here. That's okay. So you get some elbows, you have the collar, and all sorts of screws and bolts, some Teflon tape, very handy. And then this is going to be your oil pump, which is very awesome because when you have this on the floor, full of oil, transmission fluid, whatever you're changing, you want to be able to extract it because this is going to be kind of difficult to lift up and try to pour into a funnel, into a bucket. And that is your hose. So we'll cut that zip ties off and the plastic off in a second. And you get your handle, same thing, a couple of zip ties, so we'll get that off. So that's kind of like your trolley and where you can wrap your hose around. And then you get your box. I believe it's going to be your, yep, these are all your caster wheels. So that's the base of your oil pan. Pretty cool. And then up here, you have the drain. But you can see it has a screen on it, if you can kind of see it there. And then that is going to be your drain at the bottom. Okay, so first you have these wheels. You're basically going to fix on this side. So you got a bolt, 2 washers, and a nut on the other side. So let's put the washer there, and then the other washer top of that. And I'll put her bolt through. So that way we got free wheel on the wheels. Okay. Okay, so that is a 19mm on there. Okay. I'll swing this around to this side. And this will sit like that. Okay, also a 19mm bolt. And to kind of give you an idea, there is some flow markings in and out on there. So that is going to be your in pipe. So we're going to have that basically point down towards the bottom of that. And we're going to have that sit on top like that. And that is a 10 millimeter. Okay, so this is the handle. Put this in here. Okay, just make that snug. We'll put that out of the way. Zip tie, so that's going to be your bottom hose. And then this is going to be your drain hose on the other side of that pump. And these are your two fittings. One will go here, and this bottom one will go here. Clockwise. There. All right, so twist that into place. Get that seated a lot better. Then we'll take the hose clamps down. Okay, so that's good to go. And like I said, on the handle, you got a little place that you can put your hose and hang it like that. So when you're ready to turn that motor on and start draining this tray, you're good to go. Other than that, let's get this down on the floor and in position underneath my tractor for the first oil change. Okay, stay tuned. And we're getting ready to do an oil change, so definitely make sure you put your bucket up in the air, and I'll show you why in a second. We have our oil pan under there, getting ready because we're going to be doing a couple things. We're going to be draining the oil, front axle, and the hydraulic fluid. May not get to all of it in this video, but just kind of show you. I hit 50 hours, but if you look outside, we had a little bit of snow. So I ended up having to push this a little bit beyond its hours. So as we pull that up, so 51.9 hours. So we went over just about 2 hours. Not hypercritical, but definitely try to stick around that 50-hour mark. And first things first, your brush guard, you definitely want to move that forward. And it's got two little handles there that you can kind of loosen that up with. Next, you have your hood release, and you want to pop that, and then you are going to raise your hood up. And if you're just watching this video to find out a little bit more about TYM, this is all the components. So that is your battery, your hood latch, which we just did, That's your horn. So there's a lot of room to actually upgrade that horn to something, I don't know, more menacing if you wanted to. That is your air filter. Each radiator, you have one for your hydraulics, one for your motor. They have a separate screen in front that you can pull out and clean. Mine's not too bad considering the area that I'm in, but if you do a lot of hard farm work with it, you will definitely want to pull these trays out and definitely blow them out with some air. And then you have one here, and that's for the motor. And then here on this side, you have a bunch of components here. So that is your compressor. For the AC, yes, I have heating and cooling of mine. That is your oil fill. That is your fuel filter line for your diesel. And then back here is your oil filter. And then back there, kind of hard to see, but that is your dipstick for the oil. So we're going to be changing that oil filter, checking our fuel oil levels. It takes 4.5 quarts roughly of the 15W40. I'm putting that in Shell Rotella, and then obviously that is the TYM genuine oil filter. And to kind of give you a look at this, so people are always wondering why it's TYM specific, and you can kind of see that O-ring is a little bit raised and it has a little bit of a beveled edge in there. Kind of hard to see, trying to get it as best as I can on camera, but just to kind of give you an idea. When I take the old one off, I am going to measure the threads on here and give you an idea of what that actually is for some alternative oil filter choices. But again, genuine is always a way to go. And then on this side of the TYM engine is your alternator. So it's a little one because there's not a lot of electrical components on this that are electrical, which makes this obviously a great tractor compared to some of the bigger brothers that have all sorts of gadgets and gizmos. And that is your antifreeze coolant level. So it is at the minimum. I've never looked at this while it is warm, so I'm wondering how close to the max that is, but we'll get there eventually. That is your radiator, and then your cap on that. And then again, that's your fan on the inside. And then these are some of your other components that are in there. That is going to be your starter. Your starter solenoid is on there. Then you have your exhaust that runs down, so your exhaust actually shoots out towards the front of your tractor. And then that's basically all the engine components that I can see to point out. And then let's get right into the oil change, which is going to be below there. Oh, the front axle service is also due at 50 hours. And your oil fill for that is going to be right there. And then your drain, you have one on the other side on that part of the axle. And then on the other side, you have one on there. And then I believe there's one in the middle as well. So you can drain that all. And then your oil drain is going to be underneath. We'll get a view from under there. There's actually 2 oil plugs because the body of the tractor runs down the middle. So the oil pan is split to either side, just so you understand why that is why. Okay, getting ready to get underneath the tractor, and I'm going to slide my oil pan catch tray right over these pads, so if I happen to get a little messy, I am able to catch that and absorb that before I get into my garage carpet. Okay, so from underneath, that is your front axle, and that is that other drain plug I was telling you about in the center. And also that is a grease fitting that I have not noticed. That we'll make sure that we grease that up really good. And then up under here, those are the 2 oil drain bolts, which I have the backhoe attachment on, so this whole bar gets kind of like in a way of us getting a clear shot of that. But we are going to see if we can't put the camera up here. Okay, so we're going to get the first one here. Actually, we're going to get the first one, which is kind of like behind the camera, behind the oil pan, and then we'll get the second one flowing. But it's basically a 17 millimeter, and this is the drive shaft that runs in between the oil pan. Just to kind of give you an idea of how that works. Okay, so got some paint over it from the factory, so we'll get that going. So that's good. Then we'll get this other side going. And it is a tight fit on a 17. Let's give you an idea. Okay. Just getting some oil off my gloves. Another great thing about these absorbing pads, kind of clean up as you go. So we got a pretty healthy stream of oil coming out. So I'll give you kind of an idea of how that is flowing. And since I did the left-hand side first, and that one is definitely almost done draining. And then we got the right side. And we'll just let that drip for a little bit. And definitely a cool thing about this VEVOR drain pan is I can drop the bolts down on top, and I don't have to worry about fishing them out of the oil. And then, like I said, you get a nice smooth stream through the screen into the basin. So that's pretty wild. Okay, so it looks like we are just about done draining. So let's take a peek underneath. And yep, that's about as much oil as we are going to get out of there. A couple more drips. So we are going to put the bolts back in. And just nice and gentle so we don't cross thread anything. Okay, that's about as far as we're going to get by hand on that side. So let's get this one. Okay, so we're going to torque these to spec. Make sure they're nice and snug. And this one's a little off camera view, but you can get the general idea. And just double check the tightness. Okay, we're good to go. So let's go change the oil filter. Okay, so let's get this oil filter off, and just, I absolutely crushed this oil filter getting it off. So we'll let that drain. And I did not like how that moved. But hopefully when we tighten that new filter on, we'll get that. And just looking at this, make sure there's no dirt where that fastens down. And then we'll just take some oil, put it around the O-ring, and then we'll put this on. spill. Put it nice and snug back on. Okay, about hand tight. Put that on one more time. Get a little bit more of a turn. And then we'll clean that up all around there. Let's see, this whole house moved. Okay. I think it's good. We'll check that for leaks. Okay, so that's nice and on there. And then this is where we fill the oil. So let me reposition the camera. I think you can see that pretty good though. So before we get that, let's get some dirt. Looks like there's some dirt around there. Give me a shot of WD just to kind of get some more dirt and residue off there. Good. Okay, let's remove that. Okay, and I'm going to lightly around this bottom edge. Make sure no dirt falls in there. Okay, I think we're good. Click the funnel off so that's nice and clean. We don't put any excess dirt in there. And then again, we're going to use 15 W40. So it says 4.5 quarts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour about 4 in here and then see where that gets us. Give you more of a wide view and kind of give you how much we've poured in there so far. So we got about another quart to go. About half a quart. And I think we're almost there. Okay, so we're looking at that line. I don't have it totally level. That should get us right there. Okay. So we're going to let that drain in there a little bit. Now grab this dipstick from the other side there. It's kind of hard to see where we're exactly at, so let's clean that off completely. Put that back in. I know it's going to take a little bit to go in there. So it's not all the way drained down. So we're going to give this a couple. So it's not all the way drained down. You can see it's not quite halfway yet. Okay, so we'll let that drain in for another minute. And that reading looks like we're about 3/4. Okay, so at this point, we're about 3/4. We're going to take this out, set that down on the oil pan. We're going to put our cap back on. Now we have this off. We're going to really clean really well around. Then we have this off. Clean really well around the O-ring. Threads, make sure that's nice and clean. And what we're going to do is we're going to start it and we're going to let it run real quick, just so we can get the oil pumping up into the motor, into the oil filter, and then we can really get a good idea where our level's at. We'll let that sit for about 10 minutes after we run it, and hopefully it should run a lot smoother and quieter, and we'll be back. Okay, so if you heard what I heard, it got like a lot quieter after probably about like 15-20 seconds with that new oil up and circulating around. So I'm really excited to see how that's going to run once I get the cover down and outside. Kind of loud here in the garage. But anyway, we're going to let that drip down, check for leaks, and then we should be good to go, and we'll get that right up onto the dipstick where it belongs. Okay, so we got the oil cap off, and we're putting the dipstick back in. Let's see what kind of reading we get. It's all the way down, all the way up. So we are not quite halfway. So I'm going to add the rest of the oil in there. Let's see how we get. Then we'll put that in. And we are probably about 3/4, and it calls for 1.05 gallons, basically slightly over 4 quarts in the manual. So we basically added 5 quarts in total, and we are still not right there at the end of the dipstick, but that's fine. We're 3/4. I think that's a safe margin to work with. Keep good enough in there. That is the oil change for your TYM 474. Make sure that's on there pretty good. And again, I didn't like how this shifted, but I don't think it was enough to make any issues. We'll just keep an eye on it, but other than that, off to the rest of our 50-hour maintenance. So okay, so I've let the oil filter and funnel kind of drain into that. So I don't know if you can kind of see everything that's in there, but we're gonna get ready to turn this motor on. And okay, so you can tell there's a lot of oil in there. Let me kind of turn on my light here a little bit better so you can see that. So that is our container, basically empty. You can see inside there. So we'll put that hose in, turn the pump on. See how it's pumping out. Suck down into that green there. And that was 2 oil changes in there. That's about anyway, Brian from Guys Hall. Thanks for watching, and be safe out there.